we are here for you. It is the Audible. It is the Audible Live. It's Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom going over the Week 5 recap here. It's time to recap all of the action from this great game that we love in the world of the NFL and, of course, fantasy football. So to jump right in, it's Arizona 26. It's Cincinnati 23. One of these teams is still winless. One of these teams has their first win, and of course, that is Arizona, with Kyler Murray getting a rushing touchdown, 10 for 93 and a rushing touchdown, also 253 yards passing. And then David Johnson, 3 for 65 as a receiver, 17 for 91 as a runner, but it is Chase Edmonds looking very explosive on his big touchdown run, 8 for 68 and a touch for Edmonds there. Larry Fitzgerald, 6 for 58. Yeah, you'll take it. You probably wanted a little bit more, and no one else did anything of note here because we were watching, like, is it going to be more Keyshawn Johnson? What's Andy Isabella going to do? Like, exactly nothing. So it was Larry Fitzgerald, it was David Johnson, a dash of Chase Edmonds, and of course, all running the show was Kyler Murray.
Yeah, what we saw here from Kyler Murray is speed as a scrambler that put him over the top as a fantasy option. So he took advantage of the Cincinnati matchup in that fashion. But it wasn't a big passing day, but we didn't expect necessarily a big passing day with only Larry Fitzgerald in this arsenal. We saw David Johnson making some plays downfield, running with a little more edge than he had been earlier on. And then Chase Edmonds with the explosive touchdown to help open up a lead that Cincinnati was able to come back. Poor Andy Dalton. And see, this is one of those games that we look at and we say there has to be a winner. But for fans of these teams, there isn't a winner right now. It's a draft position game. And Arizona, you may have played yourself out of a top 5 pick in this one.
Let's talk about the Bengals and what they're looking at on this side. Of course, Tyler Boyd, 10 for 123 and a touch. Damian Willis, 4 for 38. Auden Tate, 3 for 26 and a touch. So if you had him in as a what the heck flex, he paid off. Tyler Eifert, 2 for 14. You wanted more. Andy Dalton, 262, 2 touchdowns. No INTs. Joe Mixon, 19 for 93 on the ground, 1 for 16 as a receiver. And, well, as you can tell, and if you watch this game, a lot of it happened late, but garbage time still matters.
It does. It still counts. And really what we're looking at here is we're testing out theories on exactly how far we can push things with our fantasy lineup. So what about teams when they're facing Arizona? How soft is this defense? It worked. It hit. If you had Tyler Boyd with the long touchdown. And again, poor Andy Dalton, and he comes through enough considering he's also shorthanded in this one. He almost also came back to beat Seattle, almost came back to beat Buffalo. You know, we would say those are decent teams, even if Arizona's not. So, you know, a little bit of respect, but I think this game shows us, we saw Joe Mixon almost 100 yards rushing, even though he didn't do much else in a game that Cincinnati was trailing most of the game. So I think we're seeing, yes, and it's and Atlanta, by the way, is next up for Arizona. So that's who you're going to, all of your Atlanta players, get them in. Tyler Eifert breaking the streak. Maybe not Austin Hooper. No, Austin Hooper's going to be fine next week, but Tyler Eifert wasn't. He did get an end zone target. Auden Tate had another end zone target, should have had 2 touchdowns. Again, it could have been a better day for Andy Dalton. Cincinnati is going off to face the first place Baltimore. Cecil.
There is no hope.
Nah, there never was hope. There never were pants and there never was hope.
Exactly. No pants, no hope. So there you have it. Bills and Titans up next, 14-7 in this one. Defensive battle, we knew it, right? Nobody was like, why didn't these guys do more? I'm surprised they got 21 points combined. Josh Allen did play, 219, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT in this one. Smoke, John Brown setting them up for their touchdown. 5 for 75 from Smoke. Isaiah McKenzie, 2 for 52. Duke Williams, 4 for 29 and 1 touchdown. Lee Smith also had a touchdown. I was hoping it was Dawson Knox because I saw the play as it was as they lined up. I was like, oh, watch him go to the tight end here, watch him block. And as soon as he started blocking, I was like, oh, that's Lee Smith, right? Because he's huge,
the
right?
guy who looked like a tackle, right?
Exactly.
It's Jumbo Elliott. It's Lee Smith.
Oh no, it's Lee. It's actually a tight end. So yeah, it was Lee Smith, not Dawson Knox. 2 for 12 for the kid. All right. Whatever. Cole Beasley, 3 for 21. Frank Gore, 14 carries, 60 yards. Allen, of course, getting 27 rushing yards as this team gets a hard-fought win. Sounds like a Bills game.
Yeah, and that's what we got from Josh Allen. And it really sees the story in this one is you can't beat Tennessee and miss 3 field goals. You just can't. I mean, that and Buffalo benefits from the failings of the Tennessee kicking game, Cairo Santos, but also benefits from a nice, safe color in between the lines kind of game from Josh Allen. And they can win games against Tennessee when Josh Allen plays that kind of game. And we saw John Brown come out strong early in this one. He continues to have a pretty high floor in PPR leagues, even though we haven't seen the ceiling games as frequently. Schedule coming up out of the bye, speaking of those ceiling games, includes Miami, Philadelphia, Washington out of the bye coming up next week. So maybe the ceiling games to come for John Brown. Frank Gore ran strong at the end of the game to help ice the win. Not so much. It's a tough Tennessee run defense, and Devin Singletary did not play. He may be back here after the bye. Duke Williams, a CFL standout, getting a touchdown in this one. So that complicates things for Cole Beasley. But hey, the Bills are winning games they're supposed to win. They're going into the bye very much a playoff team. It's really early to say if the playoff started. And see, I think we should take our heart, our love that we usually give to the Steelers and other things. We'll save the other things, give the good things to the Bills this year.
Rally, circle the wagons. Marcus Mariota is like, I was under pressure and then some today. 5 sacks from Mariota, 183 passing, no touchdowns, no INTs. Jonnu Smith, the leading receiver, and he does it on 1 catch, 1 for 57. AJ Brown, 2 for 27. Did he have a touchdown called back, or was I like in a hazy fog? It is Colorado Bloom, but maybe I was dreaming about AJ Brown scoring. Corey Davis, 2 for 28. Adam Humphries, 4 for 30. These are not the fantasy assets you were looking for. Derrick Henry, you were 20 for 78 and a touch. By the way, gets Denver next week. So just a little note there. He'll do his Leonard Fournette impression. But today they do impression of getting another L.
Yeah, just a limited team. Again, they can win if they play error-free football and missing 2 field goals, another one blocked. That's not going to work. Marcus Mariota, by the way, had a rushing touchdown that was wiped off the board. So Derrick Henry, you got the script you wanted, which you knew Buffalo wasn't really going to pull away from Tennessee, but Buffalo also has a tough defense. He did get the touchdown, though, after Mariota's got wiped off the board. Johnny Smith did have the big catch and run. That was the Tennessee passing game. If you were entertaining hopes from last week, no, that was just Atlanta. Look what we'll get to that when we talk about the Atlanta-Houston game. That was just Atlanta. Tennessee has one of the most anemic offenses for fantasy that we're going to see, and I don't think that's going to change even if we do see Ryan Tannehill. This wasn't the kind of game that's going to get the pitchforks and torches out for Ryan Tannehill, but it does show the limitations of this team. Like you said, he's facing another limited team, a winning team, though, in Denver next week.
Yeah, it's Ryan Tannehill. So it's like, how much are you really going to get upset? Mariota, we got, never mind. Let's talk about the Raiders. Let's go to London, Bloom. Bears and Raiders. And, of course, all the stoners that I know up in Greeley going to be super excited about the Raiders getting a win. And they do get the win, 24-21 over Chicago. Kind of a tale of two halves for Chicago, who falls short in this one. Tale of two halves for Chase Daniel, who was doing nothing in the first half, and then went out 232, couple of touchdowns, also a couple of picks, sacked 4 times. Allen Robinson with both of the touchdowns, 7 for 97 and 2. Anthony Miller did something, 4 for 52. Tariq the Freak, 6 for 39. Honestly thought it was going to be like double that as a receiver. David Montgomery gets a rushing touchdown, 11 for 25 and 1 on the ground, 1 catch, 11 yards for him. So the Bears kind of figure it out in that third quarter with 21 points, but by then it was too late.
Yeah. Cease. How do these teams have the same record? The Bears have the same record as the Raiders, right? I mean, this was the Khalil Mack revenge game, right? And he even kind of played into that himself. He didn't dispel the notion that it would have some extra meaning for him. And wasn't supposed to show, well, Gruden, what is he doing? Why would you give him a 10-year deal? Why would you trade away Khalil Mack? And for the Bears, it was, and I even said this was a beautiful move for them. And somehow they have the same record. What does it mean, Cease? It's like football nihilism. How can this maybe wasn't that bad for the Raiders? Well, this is that classic Raiders trap game. They did it 2 weeks in a row, where they're they're just misunderestimated, as we saw George W. Bush out there, and in the Dallas crowd. The Raiders do it. Derek Carr doesn't do much. It was really Josh Jacobs. All this talk, what if Nick Saban didn't use him as a workhorse. Why should the Raiders take him in the first round? He showed today, at least, against a tough, brutal Bears defense. A floor game from Darren Waller, but 4 for 39 is a floor game from a tight end we'll take.
Well, you just skipped right over the Bears.
Oh! You know what? I'm thinking of the Oakland as the road team here.
Oh, okay.
Because of how they. I'm sorry.
Well, let's just do it anyway. Josh Jacobs, 26 for 123, 2 touchdowns.
Right.
It's live, baby. Foster Moreau, 4 for 46. Darren Waller, 4 for 39. So there's your split, right?
Yeah.
If those other targets would have gone to Waller, then there you have them. Well, DeAndre Washington got a rushing touchdown. Nobody started him. Hunter Renfrow, 5 targets, 1 catch, 12 yards. Got a tiny catch radius.
Right.
And this is what they'll get. No Tyrell Williams in this one.
I guess I pressed fast forward because there was so little to talk about on the Oakland side except for Josh Jacobs, and now I'm going to follow up the Oakland stats with what there was for the take on the Chicago side, which is Allen Robinson is still really good, and having a incrementally better passer in the form of Chase Daniel meant he got the big game we've been looking for. He's been playing up to that level, and perhaps it's kind of a bummer that Mitchell Trubisky should be back after the bye. But for the Bears, you just have to wonder what they are if this team isn't able to get a distinct advantage with that defense against Oakland. So they have a lot of questions going into the bye, and Oakland's feeling good going into the bye, which isn't what I expected out of this one.
Tampa Bay and New Orleans. You were expecting what? Lots of Michael Thomas? Well, you got it. And Tampa Bay scoring 24, New Orleans scoring 31 there in the Superdome. Let's start with the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, 204, 2 touchdowns for Jameis. Chris Godwin gets everything, 7 for 125 and 2. Of course, you knew that Evans was going to have a tough draw with Marshawn Lattimore. Doesn't get a catch. Pretty tough draw. Ronald Jones, maybe they use him more. Well, Peyton Barber gets the rushing touchdown. Jones gets 35 rushing yards and 21 receiving yards on 2 catches. So just not a lot there other than Godwin, who's been paying off for his fantasy GMs.
Yeah, he gets a garbage time touchdown here. Garbage time touchdown helps him and Jameis Winston. But otherwise, it's the New Orleans defense. And see, sometimes adversity creates, this is like New Orleans, baby. Adversity creates greatness, or adversity creates something that wasn't there before, right? Would we have considered the Saints defense a shutdown kind of clamps defense before Drew Brees got hurt? No, not really. Teddy Bridgewater, this is amazing. But meanwhile, Jameis Winston, not somebody that's going to elevate Tampa. And I think that we saw in this game that because Mike Evans was blanketed by Marshawn Lattimore, it wasn't bad process to play him. That's just the risk you run. Winston wasn't able to make that inspired throw. There wasn't that one breakdown or two that could have made Evans' day. Unfortunately, even though we can see that Ronald Jones has more to offer than Peyton Barber, they're going to stick with this hot hand approach. Barber got the touchdown. They're not going to change. We don't even care about the tight end. So we can look back and we can say the Rams defense is not good, right? We just watched them Thursday night. The Rams defense is not good. And then we saw the Giants defense is not good. But against good defenses, this isn't going to be that explosive passing game that we cared about. And they're headed to London, by the way, to face Carolina, another pass defense that may not be good. I can't quite tell, but Tampa Bay doesn't give us a real strong feeling of confidence so far.
When has Bruce Arians ever used a tight end?
Right.
We saw this coming. OJ Howard's really talented. Cameron Brate's not a slouch either. Bruce Arians doesn't use tight ends.
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater uses Michael Thomas a lot, 11 for 182 and 2 touchdowns in this one. Also, Jared Cook, 4 for 41 and a touch. And Ted Ginn, 2 for 35 and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara was throwing passes, well, 1 anyway. 16 for 62 on the ground, 6 for 42 as a receiver. It's enough. Maybe not what you wanted, but it's enough. And Teddy Bridgewater, 314 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick for a big day for Teddy in front of that home crowd down there in your neck of the woods, Bloom.
Yeah, and see, again, I have to think destiny, right? Because imagine that Teddy Bridgewater just sits on the bench all year, okay? And then they go into the next year in the offseason, Drew Brees retires, and they have that same decision. And they haven't had this 3-0 run with him. They haven't had this stretch where the team galvanizes and believes in him, and he comes through. This is destiny changing. I mean, this isn't quite on the scope of Gardner Minshew, but now there's a connection, a circle that's closed with Bridgewater as the quarterback. It really makes you feel like over these last 3 games, they may have found their next quarterback. Bridgewater looks confident. All the good things we liked about him. All the confident, under control, playing in the eye of the storm and seeing the field well, just moving well. This was an excellent Tampa Bay, even though they gave up all that yardage and points to the Rams, we still thought of was not necessarily a cupcake defense, but they looked like one. Michael Thomas made them look like one. Jared Cook now might have some relevance. We'll watch that. And Alvin Kamara, while he wasn't the driving force from a fantasy perspective, he's still making this offense go. Speaking of Minshew mania, New Orleans going to Jacksonville next week, so that will be greatly entertaining with or without Jalen Ramsey.
Minshew mania. All right. Let's talk Vikings Giants 28-10. And you think they were trying to send a message, Bloom?
Yeah.
Do you think that was a possibility? Because Kirk Cousins came out slinging it. 28-10 the final score. Vikings get the win, and they do it from throwing the ball all over the place. Now, mostly to Adam Thielen, 7 for 130 and 2 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs did get out there and 3 for 44 in this one. Dalvin Cook as a receiver was 6 for 86. And then as a runner, he was 21 for 132. Now, Alexander Madison, 7 for 52. He good. Olabisi Johnson. I don't know why they just call him BC. But anyway, Olabisi, 4 for 43 in this one. Just a little deep dynasty thing there, Bloom. And Kirk Cousins, 306, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. See, he doesn't suck. Well, okay. Today he didn't, but it's the Giants. It's the Giants defense. And yeah, he could have kind of expected this.
Yeah, well, they did the right thing at least. At least there was a reminder, a revival of the passing game. Take it out for a drive, see if it all still works and gels, because Kirk Cousins hadn't been playing well. And coming off the week when Thielen and Diggs are feeling the way they're feeling and expressing it publicly, they needed this game and they got it. And like you said, they came out throwing, and they were able to basically assert their will. Does it mean that the Vikings are a good team? I mean, look at that NFC North, by the way. Detroit and Green Bay, they play next week. The Bears, and we're looking at them as maybe a little sister in this division. And then where does Minnesota fit in? Like you said, it's the Giants. But on offense, at least they asserted their will, including Dalvin Cook, not just as a runner, but as a receiver. Diggs, while he was active and did play, wasn't a big part of the passing game, but still you can see the ceiling games are still in play when Kirk Cousins is throwing like this against bad defenses. Philadelphia, speaking of bad defenses, not a bad defense, but bad secondary, so probably another good game for this passing game, and that is a much better yardstick game than the Giants.
The Giants, Daniel Jones had 182 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. The touchdown to Darius Slayton. Okay, kid, we'll be watching. 4 for 62 and a touch there. Sterling Shepard, 5 for 49. Golden Tate's back, 3 for 13. We're back. Evan Ingram, 6 for 42. Looked like it was going to be more early on, but 6 for 42. Whatever. Jonathan Hilliman, the number 1 rusher, 9 for 20. Not Wayne Gallman, 2 for 14 in this one. Hilliman also had a catch for 4 yards. Well, and that's about it of what the Giants didn't do on Sunday.
You can't really take a lot away from Daniel Jones here. It was the Giants. I mean, the Vikings. So he was going to look bad. I mean, he looked like a rookie. Wayne Gallman gets hurt. Are we going to see Saquon Barkley Thursday night? Maybe. If not, John Hilliman and then Jay Ajayi. I don't know, someone they're going to sign. One thing to take away here, Darius Slayton getting behind the defense, and this is a tough matchup against the pass. So for him to get that long touchdown, I'm not going to play him against New England. May not even just run out and pick him up, but he has that potential. And we already saw him with the deep ball catch against Tampa. So you're seeing that connection, and Jones does have a nice deep ball. Golden Tate did very little. I think really the chemistry was established between Shepard and Jones in a way that's not something that Golden Tate's going to interfere a lot with in the pecking order. And of course, Evan Ingram's going to get his. You could say again, well, it's Minnesota's defense, and then take a deep breath because it's New England's defense coming up Thursday.
Let's talk about the Eagles and the Jets. 31-6, the final score. Eagles get the win, and they're scoring on defense. All the time when you're setting DFS lineups, you're like, wait a second, Luke Falk, Eagles defense. Okay. All right. You're going to make that work. Of course, a couple of picks from Luke Falk, and Sam Darnold's close, but he's not out there. Demaryius Thomas played. You probably didn't start him. 4 for 47. He started Le'Veon Bell. He had 15 for 43 as a runner, 7 for 45 as a receiver. Robbie Anderson, 1 for 16. Jamison Crowder, 2 for 10. I mean, just Vincent Smith gets the rushing touchdown. So there's not much interesting here until Darnold returns. Looks like it'll be soon, Bloom.
Yeah, it should be. We'll see about the size of his spleen. Luke Falk playing just takes the life out of the game. It took the life out of the game for both sides. It just made a game. I don't remember another year where every week there's 2 or 3 games that we're not interested in even seeing what's happening for one reason or another. This was that game and went off by that game. Okay, Le'Veon Bell got his volume. But hey, maybe Le'Veon Bell could be a sleeping giant for fantasy when Sam Darnold returns. Demaryius Thomas gets back out there. But the important thing there is it means that Jamison Crowder stays in the slot, which is where he should be. But overall, Robbie Anderson, he's not doing anything if Sam Darnold's not out there. We need you, Sam. Please. Don't risk your life. Although, sees Eric Stoner. I'm sorry that I'm outing you for saying this, Eric, but I loved it. Eric's like, there's quarterbacks who wouldn't say, well, I don't want to die out there. There are quarterbacks who say, I'm fine with dying out there. Maybe like you want your quarterback to say like, well, if I have to die out there, then I'll take that risk. But I understand I wouldn't take that risk. And we'll see.
Damn millennials, am I right, fellas? Yeah.
Right. Dallas next week. So Adam Gase, the Jets. I mean, this has not been it's theater of the macabre.
Yeah, Dallas is gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
We'll get to them in a little bit. Carson Wentz, 189, 1 touchdown, no INT. Zach Ertz gets the touchdown, 5 for 57 and a touch. Alshon Jeffrey, 6 for 52. Miles Sanders, 4 for 49. Nelson Aguilar, 1 for 20. Jordan Howard, 13 for 62 and a rushing touchdown. And this team didn't really need to put the foot on the gas because the defense was scoring a bunch of points. So there you go.
Yeah, on this day of some pretty incredible performances, you weren't going to get them out of Philly. It was the first time that Wentz wasn't in the top 12. And again, they just didn't need to do much, provide a lot of wind in the sails here. The backfield was the key to the offense. Jordan Howard still looks like the short yardage, drive finishing, game finishing option for this team. So I think that he has some staying power for us as a flex or even a running back too. And then Miles Sanders, what's interesting here is on again, off again, but when he's involved in the pass offense, Carson Wentz can find him downfield, and then his speed gets into play. So that's something really exciting to consider, keeping his floor high in PPR leagues. Ertz gets a touchdown. Jeffrey does a little bit here. There was no need for more. Again, big game at Minnesota next week.
Big game up next. Ravens Steelers. Let's get it out the way, Bloom. Overtime. There you go. And the Ravens, you get the win. There you go. Nice. Lamar Jackson threw 3 picks, 1 touchdown on the day, 70 yards rushing. The 1 touchdown, Hollywood Brown, 3 for 22 and a touch, gets beat up in the end zone. Whew, toughness there. Mark Ingram, 19 for 44 and a rushing touchdown. Of course, he's going to do that. Mandrew, speaking of getting banged up, 5 for 45 in this one. Let me know if you know anything about his injury, Bloom. Willie Snead, 4 for 51. And, well, there's just no hope. I actually have like an ulcer from the Steelers this year, and I'm only half kidding. So let's get through this one, Bloom, so my tummy can feel better. You're muted.
I'm doing the Gene Bramwell. That was my tribute to Gene. I don't want to rush through this one. That was a moment of silence for the Steelers season.
Very good. You're very quick, very witty.
Yeah, look, and that's why I don't want to rush through this one, Cease, because I will say this for the Steelers team. They fought like it was a game when their season was on the line,
Because
it was. And as we talked about, if they'd won this game, all's forgiven. And there's so on one hand, Cease, I want to say there's no shame in how the Steelers played and so on in this game. But also, I think we have to take away from this how much of Baltimore, our perception of Baltimore was based on them facing Miami and Arizona to open the season. And it may just be where like the NFC North might have 4 good teams or at least 3 good teams. I don't know if there's one in the AFC North, So Baltimore does get the win. Steelers made life hard for Lamar Jackson. Things did not come easy to him in this one, and not for fantasy. It was a floor game for him. Mark Ingram got bottled up. Mark Ingram had been running like in his prime last few weeks. Not in this game. Like you said, Marquise Brown banged up. Mark Andrews banged up. This is that Steelers-Ravens game that we measured on the scoreboard, but we also measure on the number of injured players, the number of players that by the end of the game are kind of just carrying their bodies off the field so they can just lay down somewhere and heal or sit in the cold tub, because it was a brutal back and forth game, a game with some turnovers, some bad decisions on offense. For fantasy, with Brown and Andrews banged up, we see a bit of a pulse from Hayden Hurst. Not so much from Miles Boykin, Willie Snead maybe being the guy in this passing game. And we care about these things because, again, with Baltimore on to Cincinnati, which we know is going to be good for fantasy. And for the Steelers, it was a game fitting of a last stand, Cease, but it was a last stand.
Yes, it was. Mason Rudolph, they had to take his face mask off. That's a bad sign. And had to carry him off because the cart broke down.
Yeah.
What is it, Chevy? Ford guy, sorry. Never make fun of potential sponsors.
That's
I
like
love the
oldie.
bow tie. Yeah, I love the bow tie. 13 for 20, 131 from Mason Rudolph before he's bounced. 1 touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster gets the touchdown. 7 for 75 and a touch. And then here comes Devlin Hodges. 7 for 9, 68 yards. Dane Brugler, who I consider to be the finest draft analyst in the world, said, it's like, he's a runner. He's scrappy, not the biggest arm. So for Devlin Hodges, this is his shiny moment. He's all right. James Conner, 55 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. James Washington, 3 for 52. Vance McDonald, 3 for 34. Deontay Johnson, 5 for 27, and then had to play defensive back on a play, or else there was going to be a touchdown there, but it was going to be maybe going the other way for Baltimore. Johnson committed pass interference because, well, he had to. Jalen Samuels did absolutely nothing in this one. 3 catches, 11 yards, if you call that something. And the Steelers are falling short, Bloom.
Yeah, I got my emotional support animal over here. It's the rarely seen Judy. She's like the Yeti. She's showing up for the show because I need support. I need emotional support. Mason Rudolph, and you described the scene. He was out. He was unconscious for some time. And
it's the hit and it's the ground. The ground always does damage too.
Yeah.
Because it's a hit and he's out, and then he's out, he's free falling and he hits the ground. And that hurts too.
Yeah, it was scary. It's not that often sees, you think of like Joe Theismann when you see a player like motioning to the sideline, like get help. We mean players get hurt, players are used to players getting injured, but when they're overwhelmed by that panic, adrenaline, just waving, like just telling people, come on, something's wrong. Something's very wrong. And the Steelers competed. I mean, really what it comes down to here was Juju Smith-Schuster and the punch, another peanut punch. Charles Tillman is everywhere, even though he's not playing. And that was the difference in this game. But the Steelers defense played a heroic, courageous game. And the offense did enough. Now, I would be really surprised if we see Mason Rudolph next week. I guess it's Devlin Hodges against the Chargers. We'll see who they sign.
Is it Paxton Lynch?
You have to be the backup. Jalen Samuels not as involved. They let him throw the ball, and it was an interception. They won't let him throw the ball again. He's behind Conner, and Conner wasn't outstanding. James Conner is okay. James Conner can harvest all the value out of a well-oiled machine of an offense. James Conner can't transcend a mediocre or now sub-mediocre offense. So his fantasy prospects are dimmed looking forward, even though he did reassert his right to that role as the between the tackles, every down type back. Juju got the touchdown early, and he also fumbled. He also seemed to be really affected watching Mason Rudolph. We can't even begin to speak to the magnitude of like what ripples. Teams are a mass psychological organism, like a hive mind. They develop like a synchronicity, a wavelength that they're all on, and when something like that happens to your quarterback, that's what's so great about the Teddy Bridgewater story today, because the Vikings had that happen in practice. Bridgewater had that happen in practice. So from a fantasy perspective, the wind's out of the sails here. James Washington made a few plays. He got hurt. Vance McDonald a little bit. You saw a lot quieter game from Deontay Johnson, even though it was the Baltimore pass defense, going to face the Chargers. The Steelers, much like the team you're covering, Cease, much like the Broncos, they're 1-4. They're not going to give up. I mean, they're not just going to roll over. But at the same time, you can see how limited this team is, and now especially limited from a fantasy perspective.
Just double check the roster. Paxton's still on the practice squad.
Yeah.
So I would check
Paxton
my
Lynch
Xbox.
Steelers quarterback. You may see it.
Yeah.
Will you get the Paxton Lynch Steelers jersey?
Sure. It's a nice gag jersey, right? I have a Barry Foster Panthers jersey.
Ooh.
So there you go. Right. I like those interesting jerseys. Make you think a little bit.
Trivia questions. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on, shall we? And New England, Washington, 33-7. We knew this was going to happen. And we knew that Tom Brady was going to show up, throw 3 touchdowns, 348 yards. One to Julian Edelman, who had 110 yards and 8 catches. One to Ryan Izzo, 2 for 39 and a touch. And Brandon Bolden continues to score when nobody starts him. 1 for 29 and a touch as a receiver. 5 for 13 as a runner. English, do you speak it? 16 for 91 for Sony Michel and a rushing touchdown. That's cool. 3 for 32 as a receiver. And then James White, 6 for 26 as a runner, 6 for 46 as a receiver. Sounds about right. Josh Gordon, 5 for 59. Well, that sounds about right for him too, as we continue to wait, even in this matchup against Washington, like maybe Gordon can go off.
No.
Nah. Patriots make it look easy. And Belichick in the locker room. I have no idea. I don't watch like pregame or postgame shows, Bloom. I don't really know anybody who does anymore with so many highlights and red zone and everything. But they actually showed like a clip from the Patriots postgame locker room. Like, this wasn't even a big win. Belichick's like, next game. It's like, why? Okay. It was so damn easy. It was, candy from a baby.
That's been their schedule so far. It's been really odd, but from a fantasy perspective, what's interesting here is Brady threw the ball a lot early, and it mostly worked. Although this was a game for a while, Washington mirroring Miami, right? Like you're surprised that it's the second quarter and it's still within a score, and it's still a close game. Throwing some punches and counter punches here, but eventually the dam broke, and with the dam came Sony Michel. Sony Michel flowing through the line, getting a touchdown, even getting some receptions. Damian Harris not even active. Rex Burkhead out. Damian Harris not even active. Coming soon to shut him down. Maybe Philip Dorsett, depending on the severity of his hamstring injury, which narrows it down to Edelman and Gordon, not Ben Watson, who didn't play his way in. Ryan Izzo. Snoop Dogg was at Kansas, by the way. Did you see that, Cease?
It was at Kansas?
Yeah, he was at the Kansas big midnight thing. They had a money gun and pole dancers. They knew NCAA. Yeah. Was he Ryan Izzo just makes me think that because that could have been Ben Watson's touchdown. Watson didn't even play for this one. So again, all you can say is it was a game for a bit, and we'll see if we say the same thing Thursday night whenever New England goes on the road to face the Giants. Helmet catch.
All my stoners up in Greeley are like, and of course, my DFS DGen is like, anyone seen the Jay Gruden video? What is the Snoop Dogg song? Down to the last roach. Yeah, so get your roach clip there, coach. All right.
If the key works,
coach for now.
Yeah,
coach for now. Colt McCoy, why? I don't like Dwayne Haskins. Whatever. Steven Sims, nobody started him. Like Chris Thompson, sure, 5 catches, 17 yards. McLovin, sure, what the heck flex, 3 for 51. You shouldn't have been starting anyone from this team anyway, and nobody paid off.
Yeah, it was. Chris Thompson got you that 9 PPR points or whatever it is, 8 that he's giving you every week. Otherwise, it wasn't much there. Terry McLaurin did play. I don't believe re-injured the hamstring and was okay. The touchdown was Steven Sims Jr. on an end around, and it looked like everyone except the Patriot trying to make the tackle just stopped playing, and Sims broke the tackle, and then they all had that collective moment of like, oh, he's still running. And Cease, Belichick is going to play that play on a loop for all week. The team. That's all. Belichick doesn't care about the score of this game. Belichick, he just cares that play happened, and that nothing like that play is going to happen again for the rest of the season. Cecil, I'll tell you that nothing will ever again happen like Washington against Miami next week. Hide your children, hide your wife.
You need the bandana if you're going to say that.
You're right.
Bandana's a good look. Jacksonville, Carolina up next, 34-27. Carolina gets the win. We're going to get to Christian in just a little bit. But let's talk about the mustache and Nick Foles being like, I'm not getting my job back, am I? 374, 2 touchdowns, no INTs for Gardner Minshew. Also 7 for 42 as a rusher. DJ Chark is his favorite, 8 for 164 and 2 touchdowns. D.D. Westbrook, 7 for 82 in this one. James O'Shaughnessy, 3 for 57. Leonard Fournette, 23 for 108 and 1 touchdown. Also 4 for 29 as a receiver. And I know they didn't get the win, Bloom, but look at this injection of excitement that continues and puts up points.
Yeah.
With Gardner Minshew.
So some things that come to mind here, Cecil, it just so stood out to me that in either pre-draft period for these players, if you would have said we were going to see a Gardner Minshew versus Kyle Allen matchup, that's just astounding. And it was not just as good, it was better than we could have expected. Thanks in part to Gardner Minshew. I mean, and there's, Cecil, I know you've seen this thing floating around. This is like a Thursday night thing, but it's like, Gardner Minshew can be Baker Mayfield. No, Baker Mayfield could be Gardner Minshew. Now, that's what we're hoping for. Minshew's becoming the quarterback before our very eyes that Baker Mayfield was billed to be. The Carolina pass defense is tough. They made some plays. Minshew. You look at how Minshew played versus Carolina versus how Deshaun Watson played against them just a week ago. There was some plays where they got sacked, lost the ball, but Minshew was making the big plays downfield that Deshaun Watson wasn't, mainly to DJ Chark. Oh man, baby Shark. I don't know how it goes, but I know that he has arrived, and we're not going to get many more start-sit questions about him. And even D.D. Westbrook. We'll see about the tight end. James O'Shaughnessy got hurt. We'll see about Josh Oliver, the rookie, maybe. And all of this puts Leonard Fournette on track, 100-yard game, a touchdown, still involved in the passing game. It was a great battle. This is a highly entertaining game, a game that both teams left it all out there on the field. And, Cease, there was a time they said you can't expand into SEC country. It's Saturday football. Jacksonville, Carolina, those expansion franchises, it feels like so long ago. But this was a game, I think, where these teams are showing with their new quarterbacks, the air raid quarterbacks, that they can write another chapter.
Nice reference, since I brought up my Barry Foster Panthers jersey. We're talking expansion football. That was a while ago.
Yeah.
Before Christian McCaffrey was born.
Yeah.
Right around the time. McCaffrey, 19 for 176 and 2 touchdowns, 6 for 61 and a receiving touchdown, and doing everything. When he didn't score, you're like, wow, what's the matter? Because when he didn't throw the touchdown pass, right? Because they had him attempt to pass. When that didn't connect because nobody was open, nobody was even really there, and McCaffrey just threw it in the dirt. When that play started, I was like, oh, he's going to throw one too. Like, it's all coming up. Roses for Christian McCaffrey. DJ Moore, 6 for 91 in this one. Curtis Samuel, 3 for 19. Kyle Allen, 181, 1 touchdown, no INTs. But it's all about C-Mac all day, as much as possible.
It's season in honor of C-Mac and you and the football scene you're part of. They brought up during the Chargers-Broncos broadcast that McCaffrey, Eckler, and Lindsey were all seniors in Colorado high school football in the same year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's correct.
That's quite a constellation. And
all at different places too, because of course McCaffrey was at the powerhouse Valor, which is a 5A powerhouse, and then Lindsey was at South, which is like they're okay, and then Eckler was up in Eaton, Colorado, where Marcy Rossman's from. So in that year, Bloom, Chatfield played Valor. Liam was on varsity, but he didn't play, so he was on the bench, standing on the sidelines, while Christian McCaffrey ran all over their ass. I'll never forget it. I was like, that's just different. When you see those guys, by the way, watch out for Dalton Keene, who's at Virginia Tech. He's a tight end. He played at Chatfield. He's in Liam's class. So when you see players like that at that level, You're just like, that's different. When I saw
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey in high school, I was like, that's just different. He's just way better than anyone else that's out there on the field with him.
And we saw McCaffrey, and they had him on the sidelines at the end of the game, even though the game was still hanging in the balance. I think because there's only so much that a dude can give on one afternoon, unless you're Kellen Winslow. Reggie Bonifant got a long touchdown there. So keep that in the back of our minds if we do think that maybe they're burning the candle at both ends. NFC South, a division of backup quarterbacks. Maybe all Atlanta needs is Matt Ryan to get hurt because Carolina is rallying around Kyle Allen. And we did see more DJ Moore than Curtis Samuel and almost no Greg Olsen. So without Cam Newton, even after what he did against Arizona with Allen, looks like that Olsen's droppable. And we'll see about Curtis Samuel going to London to face Tampa Bay and sees at some point we really have to ask the question, if they keep winning, I mean, is there a point when Cam Newton might say, I'm ready, and they say, give it another week? I mean, the answer is no, but man, there's going to be a lot of eyes on this team when Cam Newton takes, back over, because they beat a Jacksonville team. There's no easy out today.
You're either getting sick or you need to clean your bong.
Both.
Okay. Let's talk Houston and the ATL up next, because my God, thought there'd be some points. Yeah, I was thinking 35, 30, you know what I mean, Bloom? No, let's not get crazy. 53-32. Texans get the win. Deshaun Watson went crazy. We'll get to him in a little bit, but let's talk about Matt Ryan. 330, 3 up and 1 down. Calvin Ridley, 5 for 88 and a touch. Austin Hoopa, 6 for 56 in this one. Mohamed Sanu, 5 for 42 and a touch. Devonta Freeman, 5 for 40 and a touch as a receiver, and then 11 for 30 on the ground. Matt Ryan also had a rushing touchdown, so if you had him in, nice day. Julio Jones, 3 for 42. Could have been better, but this one was a very exciting game, as we kind of anticipated.
It was. It's funny, though, because Atlanta's been bad. I mean, this has been a bad season for Atlanta. This is a failure of a season. Matt Waldman does those Easter eggs, the recaps, and he says with the recap today, it seems to me, Dan Quinn's going to be fired by November if this doesn't change. And they're bottoming out as a franchise right now. Matt Ryan is soaring. And it wasn't even just to Austin Hooper. And we saw Mohamed Sanu get a touchdown here. If you had to play Devonta Freeman, at least he got the touchdown here, but you can't really be excited to play anybody outside of Matt Ryan in this offense, and Hooper, I guess. And maybe now Calvin Ridley, who had fallen outside of our circle of trust. But now he got a long touchdown here. It was all futile, though. They kept hanging in this game. They were even ahead 17-16 at one point. But you knew that Houston was going to move the ball in Atlanta, and you still see Atlanta's offensive line and lack of a running game holding them back. Probably won't hold them back next week against Arizona.
Whew. All right, Texans. Deshaun Watson, 426 yards, 5 touchdowns in this one. Will Fuller with almost all of them. 14 for 217 and 3 touchdowns. Wow. When he's healthy, and Lance Zierlein, dear friend of the program. I mean, you want to talk about one of the greatest guys out there, not just knowledge of the game and all the work he does for the draft for NFL.com, but Lance is just a great human being. And he was talking about Will Fuller working on his game, working on his hands. Yep, we saw it. It came to fruition. Nuke Hopkins, 7 for 88. That's enough. All right, you got Nuke Hopkins. Stop complaining. Darren Fells, 2 for 20 and 2 touchdowns. It's the future, Bloom. I see him on the waiver wire show because tight end brutal. Kiki Cutie, 3 for 72. And Duke Johnson's really good, Bloom.
Right.
I just wish for a day where we could see Duke Johnson get the workload. Get it. You're the guy.
Yeah.
Because he could do it, and he could do better than Carlos Hyde. 21 for 60, a rushing touchdown. But you watch that 24-yarder. You watch Duke Johnson run. He's not little. 9 for 59, and then a catch for 8 yards. But the Texans, they're at home, and they dropped a 50 burger on their opponent.
Yeah, you love it. You love these 50 burgers. 2 weeks in a row now with one. Deshaun Watson, a week winner. Will Fuller, a week winner. And as you said, enough from DeAndre Hopkins. It wasn't the big game will come from Hopkins. I mean, they don't get Atlanta again on the schedule, sadly. But the big games will come from him. Kiki Cutie had a 51-yard reception, 3 for 72 with Kenny Stills banged up in this one. We'll see. With Duke Johnson, of course I agree with you, Cecil. You know I do. He should be somewhere on that Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara usage axis. And yeah, Carlos Hyde ran the ball with Valor. Speaking of Valor, just for amount for much. He did get the touchdown here. They're putting up a 50 burger though. You should hope for more, and maybe hopefully more of an even split. And especially next week, they're going to need more Duke Johnson to keep up with Kansas City.
That 50 for both sides.
Oh well,
50 another one. Yeah,
I would say 50 in the first 3 quarters for Kansas City.
And then their defense chokes it away and Houston wins. Kansas City fans, I love you. I love you. Chargers fans were so mad, Bloom, because I said that they're notorious choke artists. Like when the momentum was given back to the Chargers because Rich Scangarello doesn't adjust at halftime. And I just tweeted it like, yeah, I know the Chargers are choke artists, but you can't rely on that. You haven't won a game, Denver. They have now. We're back. It's all fixed. 20-13. The final score. The Broncos get the win over the Chargers, and they do it because of Philip Lindsay. 15 for 114, 1 rushing touchdown for Philip, 4 for 33 as a receiver. And I talked to Philip during the week. I was like, because he had a catch last week. He had 10 touches last week. It was pathetic. You had a lead against Jacksonville, and Philip Lindsay gets 10 touches. Come on. And so I asked Lindsay this week, like, would you ask for more? He's like, no, that's not my job. It's nice if you get more. That's for sure. Royce Freeman, 13 for 61, is looking, totally fine out there. 4-7 a carry. Totally fine. They didn't use him as much as a receiver today. 2 for 6. So that's kind of a back and forth thing. Cortland Sutton, 4 for 92 and a touch. He good. Tip of the iceberg, people. And then Emmanuel Sanders, 1 catch, 9 yards. So that one's rough. I'm going to talk to E on Tuesday. But, hey, they still had Casey Hayward out there. Right. I know they have like 12 guys on IR, Bloom, and I'm not being hyperbolic. I think it might be 11. But still, Casey Hayward was still out there. And Emmanuel Sanders had a rough day. And you had a rough day if you had him in.
Yeah, you didn't have a rough day if you had Philip Lindsay, not Philip Sanders. Philip Lindsay. And it's, they were going to use more Royce Freeman this year, and Royce Freeman was going to look better. And those things are true, but Philip Lindsay is just too good. I mean, he's just too good to hold down. And see, it's cruel, the NFL, because we could easily be talking about this team being 3-2. We could easily be talking about this team getting a good road win in the division, propelling them, into that second quarter of the season, a very winnable game against Tennessee next week. And who knows, maybe they're not done yet. Certainly the spirit of Philip Lindsay kind of embodies saying we're not done yet, no matter what. And it wasn't much there in the passing game because there didn't need to be much there. Cortland Sutton got most of that on one play. Probably too late to save this year's version of the Broncos. But I think, again, we see there's not going to be give up in this team. From a fantasy perspective, there's not a lot of complexity here, especially if Emmanuel Sanders gets traded. More on that later. But anyway, Tennessee next week, I kind of feel like Denver should win that game.
They should. Things stop Derrick Henry. And by the way, balance. Sorry, Joe. Forget balance. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Forget balance because it was 20 passing attempts for Joe Flacco and 32 rushing attempts. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Now, 3 of those were from Flacco. So what do you have? You're going to have 23 passing attempts? That's fine. You don't want Flacco filling the air with footballs. You don't win that way. Well, you don't win with Phillip Rivers turning the ball over. And man, they had some turnover problems. Couple of picks from Phillip Rivers. And note, the Broncos didn't have a turnover in 4 games. They didn't have a sack in 3 games. They finally got a few sacks, but they hadn't have a turnover. Enter Phillip Rivers. 211 yards passing, most of it to Austin Eckler. 15 catches for 86 yards. 3 for 7 on the ground. Melvin Gordon, he was back, 12 for 31 in this one. Gordon 4 for 7 as a receiver. Keenan Allen 4 for 18. Tough, having Chris Harris Jr. on him. Mike Williams gets banged up in this one before he leaves. 6 for 74 in this contest, and they don't have a tight end in note, so there wasn't a whole lot there. And the Chargers aren't a good team, especially when they're so hurt. And that's the thing. Bloom, I'll give the Chargers fans a break.
Yeah,
because if they were at full strength and Derwin James, no Melvin Ingram in this one, of course, Adrian Phillips out there, Denzel Perriman got hurt again, shocker. If they were at full strength, I would say Chargers are a good team. They're not, and they're not. They're not at full strength. They're not a good team. So Denver beat a bad team, an average team, and the Chargers got stuff to work on.
They do, and they get to face the Steelers next week because they got that going for them. Of course, that was the
They're going
game
to
of,
win that one.
yeah, it was the game of the season for them. Rivers, as you said, a little bit sloppy, but also, we've watched Rivers for so long now, and there's just certain games where you feel like he knows that to win, he has to do more than he's capable of, and he still gives it his all, but he's just not capable of it. And you got to, I mean, it's the Broncos. You got to win with a running game, or you have to at least I mean, I am that old stick in the mud saying establish the run, but you don't want to go at the pass defense, especially if you have one NFL quality wide receiver and no NFL quality pass catching tight ends, Lance Kendricks. I mean, you can use Gordon and Eckler, but death by 1,000 paper cuts doesn't work when you're behind. And it just wasn't going to work in this one. You did see Austin Eckler get a ton of work in the passing game. I don't know how long that will continue, although it's something that between the two of them, I won't be surprised if there's 10 to 15 running back receptions between Gordon and Eckler. Was this week 19 or something? Gordon not getting much going as a runner, but you hope that they try to get him more in a group, although it is a tough Steelers run defense. Next week, I think the answer is you're going to keep playing both of them. And you're going to keep playing Keenan Allen, just like with Mike Evans. It wasn't a bad process to play him, even though it did have the potential for this to happen. And we aren't just going to bench everybody against the Broncos that might be shadowed by Chris Harris, although we aren't going to play any Tennessee receiver next week. But, for the Chargers, I guess really, Cease, when you look at this, the big winner here is the Bills. I mean, the Bills look like if they just win the games they're supposed to win, they're going to go to the playoffs. If the Chargers have to limp through the season, and then we'll see about the Browns tomorrow night.
Packers and Cowboys, final game we're going to talk about in the Week 5 recap here on the Audible, the footballguys.com podcast. 34-24, the final score. Packers get the win. Cowboys surge back, though. And boy, we got a lot to talk about with them. But let's talk about Aaron Jones more than Aaron Rodgers because, my God, 4 rushing touchdowns. The answer is Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, 7 for 75 as a receiver, 19 for 107, and 4 touchdowns in this one. Damn. Aaron Rodgers, 238, no touchdowns, no INTs. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I heard something about Doghouse Bloom, 1 for 18, only 4 targets. Jimmy Graham, 3 for 41. Geronimo Allison, 2 for 28. So really, it was so much Aaron Jones. Nobody else really did much of anything. Didn't have to, and they get the win.
So, this game, you might get one idea looking at the final stats, but you probably would get the wrong idea. Why was it so quiet? I mean, this was a bad beat. If you played Rodgers, this was a bad beat because Aaron Jones scored all the touchdowns. But the game script, thanks to the Green Bay defense, was set up for a lot of scoring, and it was Aaron Jones converting them. Aaron Jones looks fantastic. Again, he looks like a terrific fit. Without Jamal Williams out there, he's that unquestioned feature back. And as of right now, we'll see going against Detroit next week, but Aaron Jones, one of the 6, 7, 8 most valuable running backs you could have in fantasy football, and obviously a bullseye if you took him in the 3rd round. And he was a week winner for you this week. Aaron Rodgers still continues to underachieve, and with him, Allison and Valdes-Scantling and Jimmy Graham, it was just spread out. The ball was spread out. Robert Tonyan got banged up. He even had a nice catch in this one. They don't care. See, it goes back to what we were talking about when we said Aaron Rodgers with the defense. That sounds like a Super Bowl team. And they did look like a Super Bowl team here as they went into Jerry World. And for a while there, they were toying with Dak Prescott. And with the same thing, and I'm going to give a nod to Eric Stoner because, of course, he's blown up my text. We're talking about this during the day. Dallas joining Baltimore when we say, was it the schedule? Was it they faced Miami and then Washington and the Giants? And we thought this was a good team. And even though Green Bay lost to Philly at home last week, Green Bay looks like the good team here. And Dallas, despite all those numbers, did not look like a good offense.
Yeah, and Dallas, by the way, get this stuff out the way in the regular season. If you have any hopes of going to the postseason, get this stuff out the way, figure it out, and get tougher, get better. Dak Prescott, the end numbers, fantastic. Beginning numbers, not as much, but 463, 2 touchdowns, 3 INTs. Most of it to Amari Cooper, 11 for 226 and 1 touchdown. Michael Gallup was back, 7 for 113 and a touch there. Randall Cobb, 3 for 53 in this one. Zeke Elliott, 12 for 62 and a rushing touchdown, and then 2 for 29 as a receiver. They fell behind so early, 17-0 at halftime. Take Zeke out of the game. Thus, you see 44 passing attempts for Dak, 21 rushing attempts for the Cowboys as a team. And even though they surged at the end with those 14 fourth quarter points, not enough.
Yeah, they were always a few plays away from even being able to think about being back in this game. In the first half, Dak Prescott really couldn't do anything. The offense couldn't do anything. And some of it looks kind of like right place, right time, but you create your own luck on defense with aggressive defense. This defense is gelling and just looking fantastic. And you want to go at them, as Philadelphia did, primarily on the ground, just like we talked about with Denver. It's going to be a really fascinating matchup, Detroit and Green Bay. But yeah, Dak Prescott comes through, but it was one of the worst games of his career. If you want to watch a half of football to make you feel like, no, Dak Prescott isn't one of the 20 best starting quarterbacks in the league. He's kind of a tread water purgatory quarterback. He looked like that in the first half. Green Bay's defense made him look that way, even though the stats came. Amari Cooper didn't look that way. Amari Cooper looked a little banged up at times. Amari Cooper was winning his matchup against Jair Alexander most of the time, and he looks fantastic. And he and Dak Prescott had their thing going. And Michael Gallup looks fantastic. Colorado State wide receiver U. Gallup looks like he's back, and he should be back in our lineups. Dallas can face the Jets next week. We'll see if the Jets bring them down the same way they brought down the Philly offense. So they'll get a win, and we'll go back to feeling like, okay, Dallas is okay. But this game should stick with them. And, they face Philadelphia in week 7. So that is going to be one for the same team. See, these are the kind of things that decide a division, right? Philly goes to Green Bay and beats Green Bay. Green Bay comes to Dallas's house and beats Dallas. They've got to right that in week 7.
Got to change it. Got to change it up. Get back on the winning track. We'll see if they do just that. That is a wrap for tonight's program. We certainly thank everyone out there for listening, subscribing on iTunes, checking us out on Spotify. I know our Flick chat has been blowing up, so put that app on your phone. You can chat with us about this show. That's awesome. We need to get Bloom some throat coat tea. And of course, like, comment, subscribe, and share. I think those are the 4 hoops. Maybe there's 5. Ring the notification bell. Thank you, YouTube. But they push corporate shows, not independent creators. So we got to fight back against the man. We do that with you guys. So chat room, thank you. Comment on the video, please. Give us a thumbs up. Like, share, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. And we certainly appreciate the support as always. He's Sigmund Bloom. He's officially awesome. You follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. The show is at The Audible. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying thanks. Stay tuned and stay frosty.